is the through line that consumers need to understand how to patronize small entrepreneurs, small businesses, or is it that entrepreneurs need to rise to a certain occasion before they release their product?
I'd say it's the entrepreneur. It's really going to be on the business owner largely. I'm and you, we're consumers the majority of our lives, right? So that, I look through that lens, me as a consumer. You brought your product to me. You brought your service to me. So it's not my responsibility to arise to meet you or accommodate you. And so that's what I saw. The business owners were having their defenses up, like, well, I do this and then you guys got to understand. I said, no, they don't. They don't have to understand that.
Right.
You have to actually level up.
So I know that you'll agree, enjoying myself while I work is the vibe that I'm trying to be on. So I want to invite you guys to Sidebar ATL here in Atlanta, Georgia. Sidebar, on top of the good food and live music, they have 3 different experiences. That means you can join me in the garden room, in the gold room if you want to try the top of the line hookah, and they also have the dungeon where I hear what happens in the dungeon stays in the dungeon. So it's the perfect mix. If you're here on business or you want to blow off some steam after work, you can meet me at Sidebar ATL so that you can have a little bit of dinner and then turn up afterwards if that's your jam. So check us out, 79 Poplar Street here in downtown Atlanta, or you can call 678-800-0741. Let's get it, work and play at the same time, right? Welcome to another episode of the Work and Play podcast. I'm your host, Ariel Young, and today we have a really, really special guest. I met your mind before I met you. Isn't that crazy? Like, I've consumed your content, I've like shared your stuff, I've had conversations about you, and when I met you, I was like, wait a minute.
I know her.
Right, I know you. And so for those of you guys who do not know this fabulous woman who is standing next to me, you were in for a treat. Akanumdrum Selolwane.
Yep.
I love it. And Akanundrum, you probably know her on Instagram for your thought-provoking, economic shifting, culture-driving content that's got us all thinking about, where is the black dollar going? Where's the black community going? How can we get into entrepreneurship? How can we lower the barriers? I think those are all the conversations that I've had about your content before I met you. And so I'm excited to get into this conversation because we got lots to talk about in just a short period of time. So without further ado, would you please introduce yourself to the folks?
Yes. So my name is Alquincia Selolwane, as she said. Most of you guys know me as Akanundrum. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Most notably now, I am the founder and CEO of the Black Virtual Mall and the Black Virtual Convention Center, as well as First Generation Apps, which is my DIY app development company.
Yes, and not to mention, sister girl left corporate America and never looked back. Yeah. That is the dream that a lot of us have, right? And it's not a success or a failure, but I think that most people will want to leave securely and find something that fits for them. You have the Black Virtual Mall. And so we can start with kind of what you're doing right now, and then we can get into your journey, because people need to know, like, the empire is the empire, but there's so much story on the back end. Right? So what made you think of, like, creating the Black Virtual Mall?
Well, it was a progression. So really, I'm a solutionist. So most of the things that I create come out of me creating a solution for myself, a problem that I'm already addressing for myself, and then trying to expand that solution. So I really tap into my audience to kind of understand what the issues are. So as I was growing and developing, I started the app development company, and then the DIY company, and then a space. Everything is always featured some sort of a marketplace. So at one point I had a community called Melanin Minds Meet, and I always feature black businesses on that community. And then when I did my Akanundrum app, I have a business-to-business community. So it was always trying to link the consumer with the business owner. And so during COVID, what really struck a chord to me was I was getting into the virtual space. I did the Black Biz Expo. And so I was getting familiar with that virtual reality and that graphic user interface, which I thought was so new. And then knowing that 41% of black-owned businesses had died. And because I had created this business community and I was tapped in with them, it was really heartbreaking for me, because for that 2 years, I spent so much time talking to people who were making that leap from corporate to entrepreneur. And then as the pandemic hit, I'm getting those DMs. They're like, oh my God, I'm not getting sales. I don't know what to do. And then the hardest part was, you know, we're charismatic people. We're out there. That's how we drive our traffic, right? Then they tried to pivot into that digital world online or social media, not knowing how to run ads, not knowing how to be visible, not having that presence because they had focused on their physical presence. So I saw that lack, that digital divide, and I was like, we need this presence. And so I just kind of connected the dots and said, let me create this marketplace that takes the burden away from them on that part and lets them do what they do and try to give them as much as that personal feel that they were used to in person. So it was really a response to trying to help during the pandemic.
Absolutely. And did you already have your platform? Was your platform this big before before the pandemic started? And
yes.
Okay, because I know, like, as I look at the essence of what you teach, it's like I have a platform.
Right.
So I want to share the wealth and I want to lift you up as I do that. So I was just curious if your growth, you had been. A matter of fact, I remember you've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah, I've been on it for a while. Yeah.
So the fact that you're willing to give back is astonishing. There was something, and I want to just go straight into it because when we met, we went straight into it. It's a conversation, and I think we should just kind of keep rolling with it. But there is something that you said recently that I've had conversations with in the with my friends about support. Yes. Yeah, when you talked about like the fact that we often say support my business. It diminishes the value in my perspective of like what you offer, because like you said, if you have a solution in the marketplace, then you are the person to fulfill the problem, to solve the problem.
Right.
If you have a piece of clothing, right, like I have this, do it ugly, it's like I gotta have it.
Right.
It's not, I'm not supporting you just because like you need help. I actually need your stuff. So when I think about where to get clothes, I'm thinking about it. So that was my perspective.
Right.
When I heard your thought process, I realize you are kind of ahead of the game when it comes to like forecasting economic changes.
Okay.
So what was your perspective on, or when did you realize that word support
was damaging?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something that I remember largely, it just became that token phrase, support black businesses, right? And then personally, it was really, I teach consumer psychology. So I had a conversation about the black consumer and the black business owner and the toxic relationship between us, right? And how some of that really resonates from internalized racism. It echoes the same conversation points. Like we'll hear somebody say, oh, that's why I don't deal with black women, da, da, da. And that's that default, right? And then it's like, oh, see, that's why I don't deal with black businesses, da, 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 right? There's this default, it's the same kind of response. And so I saw a juxtapose and I saw the similarities in that. And so I know where that comes from, that space. And so when I looked at it, the business owners that I'm tapping into, they were like, people question my prices. You don't question this person's prices, but they always question my prices, right? Or the consumer had their complaints. And I had created that conversation one day, and I let the consumers talk. And then I looked at the responses, and I put up the business responses. And it just was like a 3 or 4 like post dialogue on that. And I was like, I get it now. I get the business owner feels this way, and the consumer's like, well, I'm going out of my way to support. And I was like, wow. So that entitlement, and then that was not allowing them to correctly manage their expectations of the business, because it was like, I kept hearing, I'm going out of my way, and I'm going out of my way. And I said, oh, wow, because this is how you see us.
Right.
You see us as a charity. And then I said, that's where it's coming. It's that sentiment, and we don't understand how powerful that language is.
Right.
And so I said, we need to really stop using that language. And then you notice every time you have an issue, it's like, I tried to support, but we never put that challenge on other businesses.
Right.
And so that's when I realized.
I think that's spot on. So I kind of want to go a little bit deeper. You can educate me on this. You said you teach consumer psychology, right?
Right.
One of the things, and I love that I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you.
A lot of things that I feel, know, understand are either intuitive, I read it in a book, and I had some thought, but no thought is original.
Right.
The fact that you're so far ahead of me, I'm super excited to ask you questions, because I'm like, oh yeah, I've had these intuitions, but like, what do you think? I said one time that we can educate consumers on how to patronize either black businesses, new entrepreneurs, and I could be right or wrong, but I'm curious what you think about, like, it's not that it's a black business, but it's the fact that it's a business and the CEO is doing all of the things, or that they don't have the CRM system that you're expecting from Staples. So yes, you're buying these things, or this big brand, right? You're buying these things, but you're expecting this level of service. And so it's a kind of a give and take. As you heard this conversation between consumer and entrepreneur, is the through line that consumers need to understand how to patronize small entrepreneurs, small businesses, or is it that entrepreneurs need to rise to a certain occasion before they release their product?
I'd say it's the entrepreneur. It's really going to be on the business owner largely. So I look at both situations, because I'm and you, we're consumers the majority of our lives, right? So that I look through that lens, me as a consumer. You brought your product to me. You brought your service to me. So it's not my responsibility to arise to meet you or accommodate you. And so that's what I saw. The business owners were having their defenses up, like, well, I do this and then you guys got to understand. I said, no, they don't. They don't have to understand that. You have to actually level up, right? What you're doing. Now, in terms of trying to sympathize with small businesses, and I tell them it's not a black-owned business issue, it's a small business issue across the board, right? So what are our expectations? How can we be fair on that? So there is a give and take. So yes, you may not get the super fast or the low price, but what do you get when you support that artisan, you patronize that artisan type of business? It's something different too, right? So there's a give and take that big business isn't going to give you. So it's really on that part. But we do, as entrepreneurs, we can't keep leaning on our deficiencies and hoping that they accommodate us, right?
Are you still trying to get a leg up on your entrepreneurial career? Now, I told you about the morning meetup, the community that was created for the betterment of entrepreneurship. And we are cooking up some really cool things. Now, here's the thing. If you join today, you can actually get in for 60% of the original price. So if you join today, all you have to do is download the app, and I provided the link below so that you can join us. We have community, we have a book club, and it's the largest group that meets every single day, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. to literally get a head start on entrepreneurship. So if you're still trying to grow, you don't know what your business is going to be, but you know you want to be an entrepreneur, this is the community for you. So check out the morning meetup, click the link below, download the app, and join us today.
So I can give you understanding on why. Yes, your prices are higher. Why? Because you cannot buy in bulk. You don't have the capital, so you have to pass that on to the consumer. I get that, you get that, but we have to solve for that now. We can't just keep leaning on that as an excuse. And so that's another thing where I'm saying we can't handicap our businesses. And this is when I get tough talking, people don't like it. And so I told them, I said, listen, we're not doing ourselves any favor by handicapping our businesses. We need sustainable businesses. We need businesses that are going to last, that are going to employ. So we have to step up to the plate. If not, we can't deal off of sympathy dollars. Where are all those black squares at now? Remember all those black squares? Remember everybody was
right.
Where is it at?
That's a fact.
And I told them that's not sustainable. So when you lean into that guilt trip dollar, that sympathy dollar, that, oh, you guys don't support, that's not sustainable. But if you offer a good service, people will patronize your business. So you just have to you have to level up. And there's too many resources out there for us to not find ways to level up. So if you cannot reduce your price, then you must improve your quality of service. It's just no way around it.
I love it. That's a very clear-cut way. And looking at your content, you're very much for the black person, but you're I don't want to. It's basically like sometimes when you don't understand business and you want to be like rah about black people, then it's like you don't have that balance of perspective.
Right.
You have that balance of perspective, and so
and holding us accountable.
Exactly. Bringing up the black squares. The day of the black squares, so many entrepreneurs are like, should I post a black square or should I just post my sale? I already had something ready to go on social media for the business, and I think a lot of people had a conflict. Do you have you thought about that conflict? That
I didn't post a black square, but yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Why didn't you post a black square?
No, it wasn't necessary, and I knew it was a wave. I literally can see it and say, okay, this is cute for a while. That guilt, that trend, and so you see corporations also exploit that. So you see that. Now, mind you, get your money. If it's temporary or whatever, get your money. But I'm not going to stand on that as the issue. I've told people, don't support me simply because I'm black. Support me because I'm great. One of the things that we hear entrepreneurs say all the time, My family doesn't support me. My friends don't support me. I promise you, if you have an amazing product, you will get fake friends and cousins and people lying and saying they know you, they know your mama, they know. So it's like, if you just focus on doing that, we know that your family and friends is probably not even your consumer. They have a hang up on you emotionally, like they know you, or she on her fifth thing, or whatever.
Right.
Be successful, be great in what you do. They will come around. They're going to be the last adapters, and I don't blame them. Like, I'm not resentful just because someone didn't jump on the bandwagon early. I'm going to make you jump on. So I tell them my goal is to really get fake cousins. My goal, I want people lying saying, I want to be so successful that you actually are lying saying you're my cousin. That's my goal.
Yeah. You're going to be attached to that greatness.
And not just because I'm black. I was like, I want to step up. I want to offer you something amazing.
Yes. That's literally been where I'm at with it. I want to ask you one more question about the virtual black mall, but I also want to pivot to social media, because you just reminded me of like just this place that we're in right now. Which, so hopefully I'll get back to it. But when it comes to the black virtual mall, all of these mental, psychological things are going on when it comes to patronizing the black dollar,
right.
Finding a decentralized location to sell your product,
right.
Even being able to attract clients, right? The way that we try to use the same strategies that we would for a higher influencer that may or may not work because we don't have that same platform.
Yes.
So when it comes to the black virtual mall, how are you going to, or how are you thinking of setting up a platform that's sustainable, like you said?
Right.
Understanding all of these different psychological things. Are you thinking about some type of regulation, or what was your thought process in like building it and then making it sustainable,
right,
in long term?
So it was to learn, right? Learn from the mistakes of others, learn from the successes of others. So one of the things was, it's not simply because you're black. We vet the businesses thoroughly. We look through and see, even going through your social media and seeing how you interact and you engage with your customers. So that part, we vet those who apply. One of the things that we do for quality control is we limit how many people. So that's for the business owner. I want them to have high visibility. And as consumers, we assume people want options. Our brain doesn't like too many options, to be honest with you. It gets very tired and overwhelmed. So I limited the number of people. But then I also had to be cognizant to limit the type. We tend to get into businesses that are easy and someone else has done it, so we kind of just jump on it. So we have a lot of repetitive business, and we're in the industries, and we really saturate industries. So if we have a business that's heavily, saturated, so you have 20 of this business type, we won't add other businesses because we don't want people to come to us and say, well, this is all black businesses have to offer.
Right.
Is shea butter, is sea moss, is these go-to things, is t-shirts. So we really look for companies that have something like pet care and industries that you're just not familiar with. That's the ones I get excited about. I wanted people to have diversity in that thing. So at the end of the day, there are people who do want to intentionally shop black. I wanted to create a space using the mall's dynamics of convenience, right? So what I realized is that a lot of businesses that were smaller, they benefited from that convenience sector of the mall, right, throughout the history of the mall. So I said, if I bring them all together, and then I bring an attraction component to it, then they can benefit off of that traffic, right? And those who intentionally want to come, they can find what they need and maybe explore and find some new things that they didn't even think existed in our community. But I'm trying to make sure that there's that quality control. And so it's not a sympathy thing, it's not a sympathy play. You're in there because you're black, but you're in there because you're great.
I love it. Literally, it's got a balance of greatness in entrepreneurship, not just because we're black, but because we are good business owners.
Right.
I see that you are you educate, but you don't necessarily. At least, are you a coach? Do you coach?
I do strategy calls.
Are they paid or?
I've done them for free for years. I do them sometimes for free in DMs, and then I do charge sometimes now.
Okay.
It got to that point because I was just doing it so much. But I do strategy calls, yeah.
now that we're there, you give a lot of free game, not just like on how to build your business or how to set up your mindset as a business owner, but like economically, like how did you decide, or did you ever intentionally decide, I want to give free game, or did you get into this because you really just enjoy researching and sharing knowledge?
Right. So one, that's a core component of who I am. I pivoted my approach on social media because I'm a high school dropout. And I had my son at 16, and I was on MySpace, right? So I went to community college at the age of 29. MySpace was popular then. It was really friends and family. So most people who know me, they were there, family. They know my story. They know my parents were on drugs. They know I had a tumultuous life. So when I was succeeding exceptionally well in community college, I was posting the accolades. I made the dean's list. I made the president's list. I won a scholarship. I got into Berkeley. Da 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 da. And I'm thinking, if you know me, this is inspiring you. And I talked to somebody and said, no, it was actually intimidating. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, oh, I don't know how the hell you went from that to that. And I said, oh my God, that was never mine. I get it now. I didn't give you the process. I gave you the end results. So when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I decided I'm going to give the process. I was very new in it. And I was like, okay, hey, you guys, I'm going to Wells Fargo. I got my business account. You're going to need your EIN. You're going to need this. Right? I went on Live Plan. So I was just giving the jewels. And then I started taking classes at UCLA for marketing. One of the things that I knew was my superpower is being that translator, taking that complex concept and breaking it down to everyday language. So it was like, hey y'all, today I learned there used to be 4 P's of marketing, it's 5 P's of marketing, right? So I'm taking this, I'm paying for this info, and I'm bringing it to us. And so for me, that was a natural fit. But what I did is I never complain about anything that I see lacking. So I would never go to your page and say, you don't do this, you need to talk about this. I be the change that I needed. Not just that I need to see, but that I need it. So I literally just created the page that I needed for myself. That was really what it was.
That's such an organic, you weren't even thinking, at this time were you thinking about being an entrepreneur?
No, I mean I was starting the journey, so it was 2014. Okay. So I've been pushing business content since 2014, 2015. Okay. Like strategies and everything. And then we kind of all got a little bit, things meandered towards like the Black Lives Matter movement, so people got to see more of that side of me. And so then when I did try to go back, that was a struggle. I saw that we were just enamored with this, everything was just death at one point. Everything was death. And as my page grew, I felt like I had a responsibility to report on these things. And then that's all they were feeding me. And then I saw this loop that I had become a part of.
Like a chamber, so to speak.
Right. And I was like, wow, okay, it's draining me and I know what's going on, so I know what it's doing to other people. So when I started to try to pull out of that loop, like, okay, you guys, let's talk about this today. It was like, somebody else got shot today. Somebody else got shot today. And I was just like, okay, I see this as having a negative impact. Because we're not, how much of our lives are we supposed to spend on death? And what does that do to us? Right. It's taking away our ability to have goals or even think about the future.
Absolutely.
So I had pulled out and I actually left social media for a minute. Really? For like 2 years almost.
That's a minute.
Yeah. I just pulled the plug and I went and focused on business because I felt the duty to report and talk about those things, but I didn't want to be utilized as a cog, and what I saw was a draining system.
Absolutely.
Right.
Wow.
So I said, if I don't have anything to add a value, I know you guys need to talk about this right now. I don't anymore. We've talked about it. What are we going to do about it? Right. And so as I understood that some people had gotten empowered by complaining. And so then I didn't want to keep having that friction with us. So I backed away. And I said, okay, you guys will be okay. I know in a minute you're going to come back around. And once you leave here, you're going to look up and be like, the world has moved on. And we've just been here. And then that's what happened. Everybody started scrambling because it was like, oh God, business, we need to hurry up. And you saw that rush into from like the Black Lives Matter to like that entrepreneurial push. Yes. And then I saw exploitation. I saw all of the people who were overcharging. I don't go complain. I just be the change I want to see. So I felt like you're overcharging for services or things, and I just go charge what I think is fair. I don't complain, I don't expose, I don't do anything.
You really do.
Just go do what I think is fair.
Yes, like you have so many different, even before you created the platform, you were offering like affordable courses, affordable information, even along with the free game you were sharing. And so it makes a lot of sense. You just did it.
I just go.
Honestly, your page is like one of the only pages that for me gives me, it gives me intellect, gives me entrepreneur, like intellect and entrepreneur at the same time. Because I think sometimes as entrepreneurs we feel like, especially when we're coming out of corporate America and into entrepreneurship, one of the things that I was told is like structure and the information that you have can be like the best thing about a corporate employee into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And also the worst thing, because
Right.
you overthink things and you have all this information. But for the one who still enjoys learning, for the one who still enjoys the process, you allow them to learn in the space, and you allow like both sides to be like stimulated, so to speak. Do you consider yourself an intellect?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
When would you say that started? Because and we can go into your story, because it's a good segue with you saying that you were a high school dropout. When did you begin to identify as an intellect?
Well, I was already gifted and talented as second grade.
Really?
Right, so that I was never intellectually inferior. It's just the household that I came from was not as conducive with a child like that, right? A child prodigy like that. So dropping out of high school was actually not for the typical reasons that most people have. I was moving a lot, and I had been to 3 different high schools by the 10th grade. I was just kind of burnt out. I was burnt out on the changes and the settings, and so when I had my son, which was a year after my father was murdered, actually it was like a welcome relief, like I'm leaving. So I was already 2 years ahead, so it was not mentally, you know, I was already there, but it was just like, I'm out of this, I'm over it, you know, at that point. So that part was never an issue. When I went to college, for me, it was really always knowing the concepts, and it was like, oh, that's what you guys call it, you know, things like that. Oh, that's what it's called, right? So that part has always been a core component of me, learning, researching, understanding. So that was always there. And then once I really figured out for myself, like what drives me, what really, and it was just learning. And then you have friends that are like, why do you know that? How do you know that? And I was like, you know what my hobby is? I was like, my hobby is actually learning. The creative expression of those things is one thing, but that's what I really love to do, is just absorb information. And then once it became useful for other people, it was like, oh, I really enjoy being a resource. I enjoy that. Yeah, I was like, I really like that.
It's the difference. It's the difference. Me and my mom joke sometimes, like we can watch Jeopardy, and when you know all these Jeopardy's like trivial things, you're like, okay, well, what can I do with this information? You've turned learning into a business. And speaking of which, I'm curious of like when you were younger, did you want to be an entrepreneur? I
was always doing entrepreneurial things. So I was always either tutoring or selling something or coming up with something. When I was like 9, I remember coming up with this fitness program, and I had the kids in my neighborhood sign up for like 50 cents, and you know, we were doing a fitness program. Yeah, so it was like always doing something, or oh, I'm gonna party plan, or I'm gonna do this, and then always looking at things and saying, how could I do something different? Not knowing that that's a differentiator in business, you know what I mean, or what it is. It was just like, oh, you know, we should do it this way. So that was always there. What I felt like is that because I had so many interruptions in school, math was not my strong suit. So if you miss a year or two of something in math, you're off. So I always registered business as math, strong math background. So I remember thinking of a business and thinking, well, I'm not the person to run it. I'm a soft science girl. I'll make money and I'll find somebody to run it. And then I had the opportunity to manage my friend's Fortune 500 company, Edible Arrangements, just by sheer habit. I didn't want to. Literally on my MySpace page, I said, I will never manage anyone. That was on my MySpace page before.
But why?
Because I'm an only child, and I can't, you don't have any control mechanism over adults, and I would see how my team members treated the manager. They were like, oh, hell with him, I don't care, he get the money, I do what I want. And I would just be like, oh, that would drive me up a wall, right? I hated group projects, things like that. I hated that. So I'm an independent, I don't like that. So for me, I never wanted to manage or be responsible for adults, you know, and things like that. So I didn't, but by default, I had to. This is my best friend, it was her business. And so she trusted me in a way that I would say most people wouldn't have the opportunity to be trusted. I came into that business with different eyes. So I worked since I was 14 or 15, right? And when I walked into that building, I remember thinking, this guy created this franchise 7 years ago, I think 8 years ago, and I'm looking at every nuance, every piece of inventory, and I'm just like, like, I was overwhelmed. How do you create something like this, right? So I was interested in his journey, his story. And so I was still overwhelmed thinking, I can't do this. Then 2 years later, with the results I produced from that experience, that gave me the confidence to go forth and say, you know what, I think I can do business. Yeah.
Wow. The fact that you, like you said, the special opportunity to be trusted, right? But then also it was edible arrangements. I know edible arrangements. Y'all know edible arrangements. But where was like the growth in edible arrangements at this time?
Well, in California, there were 61 stores at the time.
Okay.
We were ranking 43. And so I got us to number 2 both years that I managed.
Wow.
We were ranking 1,200 stores. We were about 256. I got us to number 11. The thing that got me, to be honest with you, we look at people with reverence, right? So I'm looking at people like, oh my God, you have a business, you manage, like you just assign them all of these values that I realize they do not have. So going to the conferences and hearing like literally how they were suffering from groupthink, I'm listening to them, I'm like, you're insane. Like, this is stupid. And then once I realized, like, all of these people that I just assumed were just bright and intelligent, and I'm figuring out things that they have yet to figure out, that's when I was really like, okay, so just because you own a business or this or that doesn't default that you are intelligent or you really understand. So even for the business that I was in, it's traditionalism and edible arrangements. Over the holiday, you guys know, you cannot buy same day, right? You go in edible, there's no way possible. In our store, there was literally an hour to 2 hours wait time for pickups. I got that down to 6 minutes.
What?
Right.
Okay.
So it was, I'm very good at systems and I'm very good at inefficiency, and so my mind really looks at things. So I'm watching and I watch you do something and I'm like, why are you doing all of these steps? We can cut that down. Why are we doing this? So that's what I was doing. Well, other people are just like, well, that's how it is. It's the holidays and it's always like that. And I'm like, it doesn't have to always be that way. So coming in with brand new eyes and her trusting me, and I'm saying, yo, we can cut this down. And then doing that. And then the thing that got me is, when we talk about corporate America, I would call to get the numbers every holiday. Andy, my regional guy, he would plug me. He was like, yo, because there were about 5 managers before me. He's been with this store for like 7 years. This was his ugly duckling store. And he was like, I can't believe what you've done with this store. Like, I've seen this store be mismanaged for like 7 years. So he was really pumping me. And then I would call them to get the numbers. And they were like, oh, you're the Fontana store. Like, we were just talking about you. Da, la, 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 la. But no one from corporate ever called and said, what did you do? What are you doing? You would think in 2 years, 4 holidays, 5 holidays, back to back, you would call and say, what are you doing different? They never did.
Why do you think that is?
That is that kind of egocentric. I mean, how can I tell this man about his business?
That is so. I have some clients right now, literally, and because I'm so, sometimes I'm 5 years out. Like, why wouldn't a company take heed on a process improvement? You know what I mean? And I have some clients right now who literally are going through that. That ego. Like, if it's not my way, then we're not going to expand. Right. And I feel like, I'm pretty sure the CEO, if they knew that the middle managers were making those type of decisions, they would be like, gotta go. Right. Because ultimately, if this store wins and you share the knowledge, then we all win. That's when I realized it's better to take that type of information that you have, that skill set, those systems, and just apply it to your own business than it is for you to actually like build.
Try to convert somebody else's business.
Exactly. Right. So for you, is this the one and only corporate experience that you had, or did you have others that informed your like decision to become an entrepreneur officially?
Well, that was my first time actually having a management role. So there's different tiers, right? The CSR is the minimum wage worker. We have one perspective about the job and about the system, right? So I think there's more like, I'm down here, I don't belong, I'm getting paid enough. So I always tell people like, the CSR would be like, girl, that box of strawberries, $25. You can have a discount. Take those strawberries. You know, they charge too much. The manager who gets to look at the P&L statement is like, oh, hell no. Who did you give a discount to, right? The owner is a whole nother tier. So my thing was, how do I get my CSRs to see the management perspective? How do I get to see? So what I did was transparency. So I sat them down. I said, how do you feel? When I first got there, we seem busy. The phone's ringing. They're turning down orders. And then they were like, yeah, we're really busy. So I said, let me show you guys something. Let me show you the numbers. And I was like, do you know we're $50,000 in the rear? What? And it's like, I don't know why, but I think it's that maybe ego or that pride. But I parent the same way. I understood that I have to, instead of, we get mad at our children, right? You guys are wasting this, you're wasting that. Of course they are, because they don't know. You didn't show them the bill, you didn't show them the rent, you didn't show them. My daughter, for her to really feel it, every month when my rent was $1,400, I would get 14 $100 bills, and I would put them in her hand, count them every 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, go pay the person. Oh my God, you know, we could do with this money, you know, and it changes their perspective. So we wanted to cut costs. The thermostat was about $1,200 a month. I put the bill on the thermostat. You know, it's like, it's just little commonsensical things that
you can
they would never
value,
do. Right.
Everything in the world, we don't attribute value to it. We take things for granted, honestly. So with that, you putting these things as reminders, it teaches a kid to place value on things when we don't. Right. You don't realize you use the water bill. You don't.
And they assume like you guys have money. You know, it's really a trip out there. Like, oh, you have money, you can spend it. When I showed them, like, you guys are lucky to have a job right now. They became responsible, but then I empowered them. So I took Andy told me, he said, I've never seen anyone do this. I took the daily goal, and you know, it's supposed to increase by 15% year over year, right? So I would show them the goal, and every day, either we met our goal or we didn't. I would put it in red or I would put it in green. They would come and check it like the weather. They were like, oh man, we're 200 in a hole. Like, we got to bust today. We got to move. So I helped to empower them. I helped to incentivize them. I understood their pain points. I've been as broke as they are. So I knew if we pay them on the 1st and the 15th, part-time minimum wage, you are broke. So I told her, yo, can you give me $200? She was like, yeah, for what? I'm going to give them a $100 gift card, Visa, on the 7th and the 21st. Also, what I need is when we give them lunch or we have our meeting, we need to order double. Why? Because I need them to take home leftovers for their family, for their friends, right? Things like that. So now, that thing. The other manager would change the schedule every week. I said, why are you doing that? They're part-time, they're minimum wage. When you do that, they can't make life plans.
Exactly. Oh, wow.
If he has a girlfriend, how do you think it feels like, well, are you going to be here next week? I don't know. For this little funky minimum wage job that you're not even able to give her, like, it puts pressure on them. So I said, I'm going to give them a flat schedule. We have flat hours, right? You choose your schedule. Cool. Another thing I hated to do was micromanage. So I don't like you coming to me saying, well, I'm sick or I'm this or that. I don't care if you're late. I made everybody do 2 jobs, right? So I said, when I come in here, I need to count 3 people. I don't give a damn who it is. 3 people better be here. So if you are late, you better have tapped in with your coworker. Now, you would not run them into overtime, but I do not care. So you don't have to call me with a lie. I don't have to hear I'm behind the train. I don't care. 1, 2, 3 people, good. They started looking out for each other. You want the day off? Don't come to me. You better go to your coworker. Okay, you got me, I got you. That was it. So I was never responsible for changing the schedule. I was never responsible and so they literally came in, they were adults and they just took to it. So it was, I didn't want to manage because I had been poorly managed.
And then you became the best
manager that I wanted to be, that I needed.
The best way to support the Work and Play podcast is by subscribing to the YouTube channel and by going to your favorite podcast player to subscribe and rate the Work and Play podcast. That's all you have to do. So if you are liking the Work and Play podcast, the content, the stories that we're sharing, and you know that this will help someone, go ahead and share the content to someone who could actually use it and help them on their journey to transition from corporate into entrepreneurship. Now let's get back into the episode. Similar to the entire story, this is a motif. You being what you needed. I'm thinking about you bring up your like parenting skills. One, I cannot imagine you're bringing this whole economic movement, you know, community culture movement behind you. You're a mom, influencer, all of these things, and you're balancing this all at once. What do you do to keep yourself balanced as you've like made the transition from corporate to like all the things? I can't just say entrepreneur, it's much more.
Right. I changed the expectations. I changed what I'm supposed to do and supposed to be. So, especially as black women, I made a post. I said, the greatest gift that I've given myself is a housekeeper. We go into this traditionalism, right? So you talk to grandma or somebody and you're like, oh, you don't clean, you lazy, you don't have to, grandma, I do, it's different, right? What I do is very different. And when you work at home and you're starting your business, we kind of don't value ourselves either. We don't really see ourselves. Now, sometimes you go and you leave your home, you kind of even treat yourself a little different. When you're at home, you're like, well, I could do this and I could do that. How? Why could you? Just because you're in this facility doesn't mean you're available, right? To do those things.
Grandma's calling me, listen, since you're here,
right,
you go outside and, no, Grandma.
They treat you that way and we treat ourselves that way.
Yeah.
And so I stopped looking at myself that way. And I think the moment that clicked for me too was once you start making a certain amount and you see what you can generate, and I'm using and I'm wasting hours. Once you hit a little over 45, you start looking at time real different, right? Time is different now. It's like, okay, I don't know how many more hours in this day or my body or whatever. So I started to value my time differently, and I had to monetize myself. So I said, you know what? I make this amount per hour. Why am I doing something that I can outsource to someone else and free up my time? And even if that is, I want to rest or I want to do whatever. So I don't balance it like in the traditional sense. I have a housekeeper. I haven't cooked in probably about 2 years, and I don't carry that guilt of, oh, you don't cook, you don't do, no, I don't, right? Because I'm doing a lot of other things that I absolutely enjoy. I don't let people convince me that balance thing, oh, you need to go out and you need to do this. No, I need to do what I love. And I love working and I love researching. I'm going to do what I love to do, not what you're telling me my life is supposed to look like. So that was just giving myself permission and doing me, regardless of what anybody else thinks.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm coming up with a concept now for my clients to understand like the different levels of becoming an employee, from going from employee to entrepreneur. So you're familiar with like the different steps of an entrepreneur to go from like doing all the things in your business to outsourcing things in your business to being the CEO of the business. And so one of the things for just the employee mindset is kind of understanding like value. And what you're speaking to is this concept that I haven't like calcified, but it's like what you place value on and what you decide you want to like delegate, for example, in your life. Some people are like, I would never pay $1,500 to have somebody mow my lawn. But if you really enjoy what you're doing right now and it allows you to make $20,000, then why wouldn't you pay $1,500 for a lawnmower? How would you characterize the mindset shifts that you had to go through from being like employee minded to being entrepreneur minded? What you just said is like the ultimate. But what's the like beginning stages? Like when did you start to?
I remember doing a post and showing a graph, and I said, okay, people without resources, we don't see time as the ultimate resource. We will exchange time to save money. People will exchange money to save time. What I learned was, at the end of the day, our hours are not infinite. Money is. There's no set determined amount that you can generate here in this space. So when you start off and you're new, you typically come from a per hour and you see other people through your lens. So when someone says, I charge 35, if you're making 10, you're like, ooh, what? 35? I'm not, because you can't imagine, you have to now part 3 hours for them to do 1 hour of something. So once I started to see that I was actually burning through more hours, and to be honest with you, it did come to that like, oh my God, I'm so tired of doing this thing, that the first opportunity, and I asked people, I said, right now as an entrepreneur, if you had money and you could throw it at one person or 2 people, what role would you immediately? They were like, oh, I get a graphic designer. I get a social media person. And I was like, see, now you know what's burning you out. And then you're not free to create, you're not free to do what you have to do. And so it was really, I'm not gonna lie, I'm El Cheapo, right? My husband was like, I'm frugal. So I have always been that person, like, oh, I could do what he want, I could do that. And then I literally broke down one night and my business was not growing. And I was just burning and burning and burning. And I literally just said, oh my God, like, help me. I can't do all of this. So first it was trust issues too, right? What do we say? I can't trust nobody. I can't trust. And I broke it down to someone one day. And I said, okay, trust. I don't trust anybody. I said, do you trust your discernment? Yeah. You think you make good choices? Do you trust that you know what you're doing? Do you trust that you can explain that to someone? Yeah. Do you also trust that if something goes wrong, do you think that you're absolutely just expendable? Like if something goes wrong, it's just going to fall apart, right? No. Do you trust that if that person leaves you for whatever reason, other opportunity, good job, or whatever, that you can recover from that? They said yes. I said, then you don't trust yourself.
Ooh.
It's not them you don't trust. You're saying you don't trust yourself.
That's right.
You don't trust yourself to find a good person, to know that and recognize it. You don't trust that you can teach them and help them, guide them through. And then you don't trust that for whatever reason, if they're not the person, it ain't about you, people be in their own different phases in life, that you can recover. So I said, so where's the real trust issue?
Right.
And that's what I had to learn. I said, okay.
How'd you learn it? Did you just broke that down. So personally, I'm now breaking that down because I realized I didn't have trust even in corporate. I was walking in those cubicles and having conversations with people because, one, I didn't know who to trust, and some of them was like, everybody's not your friend. And then I became guarded. So as an entrepreneur, I didn't have any trust.
Right.
So it started to pile up. I'll be honest, therapy is one of those things I had to point out. Oh, first of all, trust before I even became an entrepreneur was something like, my childhood, and how I developed my schema on trust. For you, who clicked it? Was it a person who said something? Was it therapy who said something? How did it click for you?
It clicked for me because when I'm calling out and I'm like, help me, help me, help me. What do I do? Literally broke down crying. I was like, I don't know what to do. And I felt like what I was doing had such great value that it could help other people. So I said, God, if it's not for me, move me out the way. But don't let me be the hindrance to someone else's success. I really feel like everything that I'm blessed with, these ideas, they're not mine. I'm just the steward. I'm just the available vessel. And luckily, my life has been orchestrated in a way that uniquely positions me. But my trust really came from my confidence. When I realized, like, yo, I'm fucking fire, right? I'm dope, like, I'm good. Like, I really recover. I really am resilient. I really know every single thing. So if this person drops the ball, like, I got this. It was my confidence and my ability to say, regardless of what happens, I'm going to be okay. And I think that came from going through so many things and falling and being okay and really having to realize, like, yo, I'm okay. And I've taken everything and I'm still coming out okay. And then the things that didn't work for me, fortunately, my God has zero waste. Nothing has been in vain, none of my pain. I've actually been able to look back in the rearview mirror of my life and see that some of those lessons were for me, but some of them gave me an experience to communicate with someone else and be a connector. So there's been zero waste. So now I look at it like, okay, well, if something falls apart, it wasn't meant. And then you chase things that you're like, yo, and then you had a Beyonce, thank God you blew it. Thank God I dodged the bullet. I have had situations I was chasing down and I'm like, yo, I'm so glad that didn't work out for me right then. So then I started to trust the process. So I had to trust me. I had to trust the process. And that allows me to trust other people.
Yes, that's huge.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a through line. It's a healing that they're focusing on the money. And even when you say trust the process, you might even be forgetting the process is working on you. You know what I mean? Like that you are becoming a different person and opening up emotionally and mentally.
And also, I would say for anybody, one of the scariest things is like, okay, what if this person burns me? What if this person does that? You got to understand that sometimes you are a part of someone else's process. Right? So at the end of the day, I always use the mushroom analogy. You know how many people had to die so us to know what mushroom we're supposed to eat? Right? Like we literally could just go to the store and we know what mushroom to eat. people had to die, okay? Yeah. We are benefactors. But sometimes we don't know that we also have to contribute to a process. So I've frustrated people, I've hurt people, and they were just there as a platform for me and my experience to learn. So now I have to be that platform. Some people will hurt me, or they will not understand the magnitude, and they'll take it for granted or whatever. It's not on me. I was just there for their journey. That person will come back to you 5 years later like, yo, I'm so sorry. You were just a part. So it's okay. You don't have to take everything personal. Sometimes it's not even about you. It's about them.
Yes.
And I'm okay with being someone's sparring or training ground sometime, because it's cool. They're gonna get it. You know what I mean? And then I don't take it personal.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, when we met, we were at the I Love Books booth. I am so, the Four Agreements, have you read it?
Yes.
Don't take things personal.
Yep.
That one is work. It's like you got to keep that on the top of the list, because whether it's me going through my process or someone else going through their process, people, you know, for example, the podcast. Because I'm interviewing some people who haven't even left corporate America. It's like, oh, I'm not ready to leave yet, and so some people flake, and so some people, and they go, I'm just so sorry, and I'm like, listen, you go through your process. I
it's cool, like it's not even about me, right? It's not even about me.
But when you share your story, that's just what it's gonna be. So you just put the nail in the coffin for that one. Before we get out of here, I have to ask. You, like, when it comes to trust, not just as an entrepreneur it messes you up, not just in your career in corporate it messes you up, but in relationships. Because it all boils down like your relationship with yourself and your relationship with people. You have a husband and children and a business and successful followers and people who actually comment on your, like, things are working for you relationship wise. What did you learn about yourself, or what challenges have you had to face before you got to a place where you can actually say my relationships are secure?
Wow. I had to deal and be like completely, I look at it like sometimes you have to put yourself on the surgeon table, right? And you got to get the mirror, and you got to start to like scalpel through, and you got to go in. You got to really look at it. And I had to learn to know me, like me, trust me, right? So I had to pull out pieces of me and see what was damaged, what was broken, what was hurting me, what was hurting other people, what was causing me these things. And as I look at these things, and of course we're not doing the therapy and all this, I had to look at these things and say, okay, this is a core component of me, and this is causing me a lot of damage. I need to work on this thing. This is a part of me I don't really know if I have the bandwidth to work on. This is a part of me some people may not like, but I like it, so we're going to keep that. And I literally had to do an assessment, almost a SWOT analysis of myself. And I had to really decide, this is who I am. And if I'm honest with you about the good, the bad, and the uglies of me, that helps a lot more. Instead of me trying to just be this representation of what you think, right? How about I be more me, and I give you more permission to be you? So, am I going to hurt you? Yes. But at the end of the day, a lot of people who know me know I have a strong personality. Or people be like, you don't apologize, you don't apologize. And I was like, well, for me, apologies are behavior modification. I don't apologize to make you feel better. I have to really understand what I did, and I have to really be with you, because sometimes you feel that way, that doesn't mean it's a fact. I have to really be like, yo, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to work on that. I promise we're not going to keep having the same issue. I'm going to work on that thing. So that makes me more tolerable. I had to understand my assholeness. I had to understand the things that, like, yo, make me unbearable. And I'll tell people that, like, yo, I'm dead ass self-centered. I don't remember that. Like, these are things you'll have to deal with, and you can decide if that's okay. If the other side of me is enough, right? And that helped out. Just knowing that, you know, and being aware of that. Because we have our self-bias. And we're able to point out everything else. Like, she's this, she's that. And I'm like, I just started being real honest with myself, like, yo, I'm kind of like, I do that, don't I? And then once you start doing that, you get the friends that point it out. And from time to time, I love it when I'm like, yo, I can't even believe that. Oh, like that time you did that. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing here? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, exactly like that time. You know, oh, okay, you know. So, and I love that when people like call me out, right? on that kind of stuff. And so that helps.
I love it. You said doing your surgery on yourself. I've gone a long time saying you can't do surgery on yourself. Like, you can't be your own surgeon, but you just blew up like a little bit of a paradigm that I had, because I think that I've reached a point in my own growth where therapy, I love therapy, and I will tell you guys, the first step is therapy. You know what I mean? To have someone else look at you and help you become aware of what you're not aware of. But I've reached a level, it's like, these people can't know you more than you know you.
Nobody can. They're not the expert. Right.
So you just like, in one conversation. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And I had so many other questions about like how you foster engagement, how you see your career, going forward, like all of these things. And like, we're gonna have to have part 2.
I was about to say, like, I'm right up the road.
We got to.
I'm right up the road. And I would love for you to come by my apartment.
That would be dope.
I got a bowling alley.
Really? I
gotta see that.
The fact that this is a Work and Play podcast, and the last thing she mentions is the fact she got a bowling alley. Sis is right here with the Work and Play.
We're working and playing.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so before we get out of here, I got so many, but I will hold them for later.
Okay.
Before we get out of here, there's someone who is still in their job right now.
Okay.
They have not necessarily gotten out of groupthink yet. They have not necessarily identified what they would even do as their first business in entrepreneurship. What would you say is the first thing that would allow someone to become aware or to take the first step if they are interested in entrepreneurship? Right.
So the first thing that I would ask is why? I've had people say, what business should I do? And I say, if you ask me that question, none. That's just being brutally honest. If you actually have to come to me and say, what business should I do? None. Because when you're a solutionist, this solution, what you're doing, it has to come from a place. What you're creating has to come from a place, a need, a necessity, and then your ability to say, I can do this better. I have something more to offer. If you're literally, then I feel like you're being bombarded, right? So one, take the pressure off of yourself. If you're really like, companies need valuable people. Everybody can't do that thing, right? You can be like a core component of a successful business, right? So my first thing would be to be really quite frank with yourself and say, why are you even feeling that need? Because most of the people that I know, and I know this probably goes against what people want to hear, I don't know anyone who's really an entrepreneur who can be held back. When you are really like, I have this thing, you see more people that are telling you stop. So if someone's pushing you, you have to be like, what's going on, right? So it may not be necessarily the time for you to do and find that thing that is driving you away from what everyone is telling you is safe, driving you from everything. Because that drive has to be so serious that you are literally abandoning what's commonsensical. So that I want you to be so passionate about it that no one else can stop you. So that's not something I can put into you.
Yes.
That's not something that I can, now I can give you the strategies. You tell me I got this, and I'm like, okay, this is the exit plan. This is what we do. But first, I need you to be so certain about it and strong about it. I don't care how silly it sounds. I need you to be so certain about it that you're going for it. Now, if you find yourself feeling that way, but then you're like, but I got responsibilities. People tell us, don't jump out there. Hey man, listen, no. It's okay to create a strategy and an exit plan. It is okay to literally, okay, I'm gonna get here and my goal is gonna be this, and then by the time I leave, I have a nest egg. That is responsible. Don't make somebody make you feel like, oh, if you have a plan B, you're not serious. That's a lie. As a business, you should have several backup plans, right? Okay, if that don't work, we're gonna do that, and if that don't work, we're gonna do that. That's a part of business. So why would somebody tell you that, right? So people will really gas you up and make you feel guilty, make you feel like you have to or you're lesser than. That's not true.
Yeah, you don't know this, and they think She didn't even know I have the corporate exit blueprint. I literally, when
I did not know that.
No, everything I talk about is the exit strategy.
I didn't know that. I had no idea.
You literally just broke it down so well, but the wisdom that you gave it, you know what I mean? It's I'm only 5 years into my journey. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm only really like 18 months of clarity.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so to hear you say these things, kind of like how you said a minute ago, and then we'll get out of here. It was when you went to school and you had these ideas. You're like, oh, that's what you call it.
Right.
That's what you call
that was it.
This is the experience that I'm having right now.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yes. So for those of y'all who are watching, we're gonna have a part 2. I promise you. But who wants to get connected with you or apply to work with you? How can they get connected and how can they?
Right.
work?
So everything is really, I try to keep it as simple as possible. You can follow me at Instagram at Akanundrum, and then there's Akanundrum.com, and that's my little flow code type of link tree page. So everything that I'm doing, there's a link to that thing. So I think that's just the easiest way, instead of saying, oh, go here, go there. Just go to Akanundrum. So if you want to apply for the Black Virtual Mall, if you want to become a Shop Akanundrum reseller or a seller, all of those things, whatever I'm doing currently is going to be on that. So it really would just be Akanundrum.com. It would be the easiest thing. If somebody wants to reach me, it can be just Akanundrum@gmail.com. So yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You guys have it. Go ahead, take action. Follow this woman. Literally. The journey is amazing, and I can't even believe I knew her before. I knew her mind before I knew her person.
That was a part right there when you said what you. And people, for me, I haven't been out, just low key, really like in 2.5 years. So the conference thing and everything, this was so new, right? So when I was walking around Invest Fest and everything, and I'm just talking to people and introducing myself, they're like, Akanundrum, like, I know you. I was like, oh, snap, like, okay.
Yeah.
So it was just, and I wasn't really used to that as much. So that was super dope.
That's part 2.
Yeah.
That is part 2. Yeah. So you guys be good. Take some notes, execute, be great. All right, y'all? Peace out.